painting which is stored in the fireproof storehouse of the Temple of Ryoko in Daitobuji. It's a small painting, actually. I'm going to read a poem about it later. It's only this big. It was brought back from China in the 14th century on one of those Japanese-Chinese trading trips. The painter was a Chinese Zen monk named Muchi, who the Chinese have described in their own writings as a second-rate painter, who painted wonderful dragons, and is also notable for tigers, which were really big paintings. But this little painting, the persimmons, and several other paintings of chestnuts and eggplants are not considered in the Chinese tradition worth mentioning. Whereas the Japanese said, oh, these are the best Zen paintings we've ever seen, and bought them and took them back. And the persimmons painting now is actually considered, in some circles at least, one of the world's great classic paintings. I acknowledge most Occidentals, Euro-Americans and so forth, are not necessarily going to agree with that. But wherever did you see 6 persimmons drawn so well? We'll come back to that. I've got another story about that painting. It ended up at Daitobuji at Ryoko Inn, and the trade items, interestingly, were Japanese swords for Chinese Zen paintings. The Chinese were trying to deal with the Mongols, and they were buying up Japanese swords as trade items because they were, even the Chinese acknowledged this, the best swords they could get. Okay, back to our own times. 1958, I'm working in the engine room of a tanker, an oil tanker, taking a break from being in a Zen temple, using my old Siemens papers that I got when I was 18. And we are heading back empty for the Persian Gulf, for our second trip to the Persian Gulf, going just south of the Bonin Islands, or otherwise known as the Ogasawaras. And one night I wrote this poem. Oil, soft rain squalls on the swells, south of the Bonins, late at night. Light from the empty mess hall throws back bulky shadows of winch and fair lead over the slanting fantail where I stand. But for men on watch in the engine room, the man at the wheel, the lookout in the bow, the crew sleeps in cots on deck or narrow iron bunks down drumming passageways below. The ship burns with a furnace heart, steam veins and copper nerves, quivers and slightly twists and always goes. Easy roll of the hull and deep vibration of the turbines underfoot. Bearing what all these crazed, hooked nations need, steel plate and long injections of pure oil. Sometimes I wish I hadn't been right about these things. Well, I'm afraid this has only proved to be more true, and the metaphor of addiction more true than I even thought. Asking me, and I had met her in her family before, asking me about what's a good way to write poetry. And I looked at this letter from her for some weeks before I finally answered. Dear Melissa, I do remember you. You had curly hair and stood by the stair up there on Quadra Isle. with a shy smile. Say hello to your mother, Jean. I don't remember your sister's name, and that's a shame. But I sort of remember her face and natural grace. Not all poetry has to rhyme, but this time I'm writing back the way you did it. It's to your credit. You got me to write this form. Since real poetry is born from a formless place, which is our original face. Buddhist teachers say and play. So, if this helps you be a writer, it will please your new friend, Gary Snyder. I know we said questions and answers, but this is too much. I've gone too long, and you are too many. The night is too late and too hot. Thank you all for coming.